Hi, I'm Brandon Steen, represented artist with the Elaine Fleck Gallery, and welcome to the Toronto Saints. The 5 saints are in 5 wards. The 5 wards were laid out in 1837 by the civic government of the day, and I wanted to take a closer look at 5 buildings that I have a history with in my own way, and show them here in this show. I spent a lot of time as a young man around St. Lawrence Market. I'm a home chef, and I was just enamored with the insides of that building from a young age. I used to work nearby and go there with co-workers for lunch, and it's just it's a beautiful building, and it's been reinvented a few times, but that building itself, the pressed bricks were pressed in this brick press in this very room. Maybe it's over your left or your right shoulder, but it's the big dinosaur in the room, and that thing put out so many bricks that went on to being assembled on all sorts of buildings, from hospitals to concert venues like Massey Hall, the Ontario Legislature, the St. Lawrence Market, which you can see in the St. Lawrence Ward painting called St. Lawrence. Chet Baker has been a faithful friend of mine in my studio going on a couple of decades. And he is featured on the side of the painting called St. Patrick, which is the Rex Hotel, of course, at St. Patrick's and Queen. At one time it was the Williams Hotel, originally before it was named the Rex, but amazingly it's been a hotel on that site going back to the late 1800s. It's always been a hotel. I chose a building in St. Andrew's Ward. It's the Toronto Waterworks building, which is sadly going to become a condo. But I worked in that neighborhood for quite a bit of time, and I used to have lunch adjacent to that location. So I was always enamored by the architecture of it, which takes me to St. David's Ward, which is the old Wilton Court Hotel. A lot of people don't know this, but Dundas East wasn't Dundas East. It was actually called Wilton Avenue. And so Wilton Avenue had the Wilton Court Hotel, built in 1913, and it was a posh place. And it's still a posh place, albeit a gentleman's club called Fillmore's Hotel, and so that's the painting for St. David's Ward. And St. George's Ward is the Toronto Club, and this building is just, it's a magnificent structure, and all its glorious red brick. It's called the Toronto Club. It's the oldest club in Canada. It's the 3rd oldest in North America, and it is the place to be if you are, let's just say, a bit more conservative, to get in there. It's very secretive, but it's a beautiful building nonetheless, and it's captured in the painting St. George. The process involved for myself when I build a painting requires extensive amount of hours of pre-planning, pre-production. I scout locations, usually using Google Earth, but I'll go down and shoot it, and I usually shoot buildings early in the morning because, for one reason, there isn't cars parallel parked in front of buildings. And then I look at those photos on my iPad to see if I got something good, and maybe I have to go back out and reshoot something, and then I'll come home and download them into my computer and then make a shot selection. So I always use Photoshop to build a composition, and then I you know, I use an animal with it. Graffiti is, I just make that up. But I will often design the graffiti and then I import that into Photoshop, you know, on its own layer, and then maybe adjust the perspective of it so it's just perfect. And then I always start with a wood panel. I have a carpenter, a local Toronto carpenter, who makes all my things for me. And this one here is birch. I use birch or maple. So I get my panels ordered, they get made for me, and then I sand them, I prime them, usually a dark gray, and then I take my composition and I transfer it onto the panel with a pencil, and then I just start building a grid for my sky, and then I mix up all my colors from scratch and paint out my grid. That usually takes a day or two. It's tedious, and before I can start, as I call it, buttering paint onto the actual composition. I use graffiti as an education purpose. My graffiti is only there to support narrative in the painting. So in this painting, this club, the Toronto Club, I'm not exactly sure where the Toronto Club had their original location, but the Toronto Club was founded in the same year that an American tried to overthrow the British government, and his name was William Lyon Mackenzie, and he was a bit of a rebel, and it was the Upper Canada Rebellion that was fought on Yonge Street. And so we have William Lyon Mackenzie down here with an homage to one of my favorite artists, David Bowie, and I've put the lightning strikes on his face for Rebel Rebel. There will be more graffiti on this building. How much and where is left to be determined. But yeah, the graffiti's there to support the narrative of the story, you know. For instance, on this painting here, this property was owned before the gentleman who built the hotel. He bought it off of a lady named Lucy Livingston, and Lucy lived here for 30 years. So I put Lucy up here. So yeah, I just add little, you could say, Easter eggs, but the graffiti has a purpose. It's not there for no purpose. It has a specific purpose why it's on the building, and it fits because we associate buildings with graffiti. I like to put in my little things that mean something to me. A lot of the times it could be music that I'm listening to. So there's been references to like Radiohead and Rush, U2, Van Morrison are in past works, and Neil Young, just Bowie. They're just things that have been playing in my studio. I thought, you know what, I'll put this in. Other signatures, I have these two characters called Abe and Happy. Abe and Happy are pretty much in every painting somewhere. So far, Abe is down here in this painting. Happy will be here somewhere. I have Happy hanging off a window ledge here, and then I have Abe up here on the sign. But yeah, I like to just impart part of my personality into the artwork. The reason my skies are white is it's not complex. It's my way of focusing the art patron. I imagine the person standing looking at my art is looking at the building, and I want to focus that attention on the building. A lot of these buildings, people pass by and they don't really give any thought to the buildings, and by extrapolating the two elements where I'm taking away the noise and I just highlight the building, it's my way of focusing the eye on the architecture. It's a subtle thing. It's hard to see unless you're in front of the painting, I guess, is a fair way of putting it, but the multicolored tiles that I paint in behind show through, and their own, you know, pinks show through more vividly than yellows and blues, and it's just my way of putting a signature to my painting or my skies. Pigeons are in the sky actually because of 9/11. When 9/11 happened and the planes were all grounded, there were no big silver birds in the sky, and the skies became quiet, and they were ruled by birds again. And that's what I remember. One of the things I remember in Toronto after 9/11 was that, you know, the loudest thing you'd hear in the sky were big flocks of pigeons. I juxtapose an animal to the buildings for one reason. It's all about a quiet balance, that animals are the only creature that inhabit this earth that isn't destroying it, and they know how to live harmoniously in their elements. They roamed this land that we call Toronto before the Europeans came, and I just like to have some fantasy with them that, you know, this white moose is walking downtown Toronto, that, you know, maybe several hundreds of years ago there'd be a white moose walking down. In this painting here, the old Wilton Court Hotel, I elected to do a red-tailed hawk with a red fox, and there's some cheekiness with that. It's you know, the bird is being hunted by the fox, or maybe the fox is being hunted by the bird, and you know, from a relationship standpoint, you have guys chasing girls, and girls chasing guys, and guys chasing guys, and girls chasing girls, whatever makes you happy. And so there's a bit of a play on that, because Fillmore's Hotel is a strip club, so, you know, it's a little tongue-in-cheek to what the building is presently, and that's my process.